All right, good morning everyone. My name is Madison Chobo and I'm here today to discuss the unit topic, facilitate the empowerment of older people, so CH001. So today I've just got a PowerPoint presentation which I'm going to be going over some practical skills that you can use when working with older clients. In addition to this, we're going to have a look at a couple of different videos and case scenarios a bit later on. One thing that I will mention for your unit, for the coursework you need to complete for this, just ensure that you are looking at this PowerPoint, but in addition to that, doing your readings for this topic, as the textbook provides the most relevant information when it comes to your questions that you've got for you there. All right, so we'll get started. So one of the things that I wanted to highlight prior to getting into the nitty-gritty of how we assist with and facilitate the empowerment of older people is talking about what our older generation looks like at the moment in Australia. So this is one of the statistics from the Australian Human Rights Commission, and one of the key things to take away from this is the fact that we are growing older as a population, and there are more older people within our population for the sole reason that we're living longer. So you can see here some of the predictions that we've got. One of the predictions is around the declining workforce ratio. So they predict by 2050, what this is saying for the number of people that are working. So for every 3 people that are working, there will be 1 Australian aged over 65 years. So that's quite a significant statistic when you look at the differences between 1970 and 2050. The biggest thing to take away from it is just mainly around that we're going to have an increasing older population, and they're going to require supports when it comes to day-to-day tasks, and this is something that us as support workers can assist with. So older people are assets, so they are active and productive members of our community who want to remain socially connected and independent. So I wanted to start this presentation with a video that highlights the uniqueness of our older clients.
I think I've done all that I wanted to do.
Sorry about that.
As long as I can be helpful and keep going, that's the main thing. My name is Clifford, but call me Cliff Crozier, and I was born on 6th of September 1915. Makes me now 101. I was born in Birkenhead, in the Wirral, Cheshire. Apart from the war and the time I was at college, I've been all there all my life. I've been retired now for 38 years. It always pleases me, though, that they keep robbing the government, really, of my pension. It's just that you keep going. It's only a number. 101 is only a number. And for the day. A spot of whiskey occasionally helps, although it's not on the national health.
I have so many fond memories. Sometimes sit down in my chair and I think back, and I try to sort of reorganize the story about these people that I have got in my mind, and mix them up together first and then pair them all. And I think there are quite a few people out there that would be very, very happy to be together because they are such lovely people that they are. Emilia Teresa Harper. Teresa. It's Teresa because it's Czechoslovakian. 103, my goodness me. 3 is my lucky number. I have always been lucky. I've never been unlucky, touch wood. Oh, there's wood underneath there. I was in Czechoslovakia when I was a young girl, and I was living with my grandparents because my father was a prisoner of war. We came over to England to be with our father when he was released from the war. Everything makes me happy. I love talking to people. I like doing things. I like going out shopping. Once I go out shopping, I don't want to come back. I don't think there is anything that I really need to do, because I've done practically everything that I ever wanted to do in the past. I've got beautiful memories, you know. I can live happily forever after because of my lovely memories.
Do you know Sri Lanka? I climbed up the tower there, Sirigura, which is 600 feet up to the top. I've always been fond of the water, and I did a lot of yachting when I was young as well, another part of my misspent youth. My name is John Dennerly. I'm 102 and a half. I was born at an early age, before World War I, in Denton, Manchester. I've had a relatively easy life, even with the RAF 5 years of war. It was an adventure more than a penalty, even amongst the bombs. But I wasted a lot of time, my childhood, entertainment, that sort of thing. Even staying up till sometimes right through from midnight right through to breakfast time, and Mother would come down in the morning and say, "Haven't you been to bed, John?" And I'd say, "No, I've been listening to the Schenectady, New York on the radio with the jazz band." I enjoyed it. And then sort of settled down once I became a pharmacist.
I don't feel any older than I was, 20, 30 years ago, except with my limitations.
I don't feel 29, but say 79, 69, 79.
I'm not going yet. I'm still strong. I'm very, very strong. I've never realized how strong I am. It's all the food that my mother cooked and, first of all, grew in the garden.
I make my own bread by hand. I'll probably be making some today.
That's my online. Tesco's coming tomorrow.
We always had fresh food when we were youngsters. Always. Straight from the garden into the pan and onto the plate.
Skimmed milk, kitchen towels.
6 ounces of flour, 2 ounces of sugar, and 6 ounces of
butter.
Butter.
Apples or gooseberries, lots of gooseberries.
Shepherd's pie.
I don't have many failures. If I'm making a cake and it fails, it becomes a pudding.
Oh, my marriage was absolutely wonderful, heavenly, heavenly, heavenly. I lived with him from the age of 16 until he died at I think it was over 70. I wanted to marry a handsome man and a man with good manners, and I had both.
We did have problems, but we got through them. And I think nowadays people give up too easily.
I'm always optimistic, and she was always pessimistic. So we got on very well together.
Make the most of it, because especially if it's the first love, there's nothing like it.
Right, I think that gives you a general idea for all of the older people that were in there. So all of them living past the age of 100, and some of the stories that they were sharing with this, I believe it was a BBC broadcast one there. So you can see some of the differences when it comes to cultures. Obviously, with all these clients, they or all these older people, they lived in the UK, and they were talking about their stories and their experiences too, because a lot of them lived through World War II and served as well. So you can see the rich stories that they do have and the lives that they have led, very different lives, professions, but you can see that uniqueness and the fact that they still hold a lot of values and they still enjoy doing a lot of things out in the community. Okay, so to start off, when we're empowering older people, one of the most important things we need to do is being able to establish rapport with our clients. So this is going to include incorporating empowering phrases into our speech and using active listening techniques to better engage with our clients and develop that rapport and relationship with them. So when we talk about interpersonal skills, this involves communicating effectively with different people and being aware of the different cultural differences between yourselves and others, and how this might affect communication. So what I mean by this, say for example, in Australia, we have a lot of jargon and sayings that we use that other people from other countries might not necessarily understand what we're saying. So it's always important to clarify in those instances. One of the things with interpersonal exchanges, the points that we've got here is just some of the points to remember when we're first meeting someone, developing that relationship. So trying to find some common ground in order to have a conversation, using positive, confident and cooperative language, and be interested in what they're saying too. And we'll talk about some of the body language techniques that we can utilize in order to show that we are interested in what the other person is saying. Okay, so with improving communication, I wanted to first get started for that very first encounter when it comes to when we talk to our clients and we're building rapport for the first time. So when we're first meeting a client, these are some of the things that I would get you guys to just have in the back of your mind whenever you're speaking with a client. So this includes the environment that you're in currently. So that can be if it's too loud, if it's noisy, if you need to have a private conversation and there's other people out in the room, talking to the client and seeing what they're comfortable with. We're also going to go through the SOLA technique and some non-verbals and verbal paralanguage that you need to be aware of when you're communicating with your clients too. So when we talk about the SOLA technique, this is a client building rapport technique that we utilize in order to ensure that when you are talking with clients, you're not coming from a confrontational way. So say, for example, if I was meeting a client for the first time and they were sitting down and I was standing over them, we're looking down on them as I was speaking, this might make them uncomfortable. And also you've got a different power dynamic with one person sitting down and one person standing up. You don't have that level eye contact. Usually what I do in these instances is that I will, as much as possible, try to get to the eye contact level of the client. So whether that be sitting down or kneeling down slightly, so I'm having that eye contact and I'm not looking over them. The way that we can remember this is with our SOLA technique. So SOLA technique is sitting squarely in relation to the other person. So also sitting at an angle. So whenever we're having a conversation with someone, and I would get you guys to draw back from if you've ever had an interview before, if you've ever been at school with your principal and they're at the opposite side of the table, it can often be quite confrontational when you have someone sitting directly in front of you. This is something that can also be confrontational for our clients too. So when we're talking with people, the best way to do this to make them comfortable is sitting at an angle. So you can see this example here with our two lovely stick figures. I'll just get the pointer so you can see this a bit better. How they're sitting at an angle from each other. They're not sitting directly in front of each other. It's at that angle where it's not as confrontational, and it's going to be more of a comfort for your clients too. Another thing is maintaining an open position. So having that open body language. What we talk about with this is that you don't want to be projecting negative body language. This can include, for example, crossing your legs, crossing your arms, and generally being quite stiff and not really open with your body language. Best thing to do in these circumstances, uncross your legs, sit in a way that is comfortable for you, but is also going to project to that you are comfortable in the situation to the client. So not crossing our arms, making sure that we're having that open body language. So leaning slightly towards the other person. So this is to the comfort of the client. What I would suggest in these instances, because I'm sure there are some people, when they communicate with someone, they might tend to lean forward when they're interested in the conversation. If you're noticing when you lean forward, the other person is leaning back, you're getting into their personal space. So when we're leaning slightly forward, this is to the comfort of the other person. It's expressing our interest, but we also need to be aware of how the other person, where their space, where they're most comfortable with us being in their space. So the way you do this is just literally watching how the person responds and leaning a little bit forward to show that expression of interest. Maintaining reasonable eye contact. So again, same with the leaning, this is to the comfort of the other person. Some people are very comfortable with a lot of eye contact, others are not. How are you going to be able to tell this with your clients? Is if you're giving them direct eye contact and they're looking every way except at you, it is very obvious that that is a bit too much eye contact. So in those instances is drawing it back a little bit. I would do it based on mirroring the other person and seeing how much eye contact they give you and mirroring that to build that rapport. Another key thing, and this might sound pretty obvious, but try to relax. So try not to fidget when you're talking to someone. So if you're bobbing your knee up and down, if you're playing with something with your hands, this can be interpreted by somebody else as you are not interested in the conversation. You want to leave the conversation if you appear fidgeted or agitated. So biggest thing with this is try to relax. I have other support staff and other students that I know. The best way to actually realize how you communicate with others, and if there's anything that you might not be aware of that you're doing, say for example chewing on a pen or playing with something, if you talk to somebody else and try to practice that rapport building with the client, they're going to be able to identify those key things that might become a bit of a distraction to them when they're talking, and they can give you that feedback back. All right, so we talked a little bit about body posture, so making sure that we are having a positive open body posture. We're not crossing our arms and our legs unnecessarily. Eye contact is to the comfort of the person. One of the really important things, especially when we're providing personal care or we're going into somebody's home, is that our physical appearance matches our profession. So what I mean by this is ensuring that when we're going into work, that we're dressed appropriately, we've had a shower, our hygiene is met, put on deodorant, perfume, whatever it might be, and we're presented in a way that we're going there to work and support someone. Because I'm sure we've all had an experience where there might be someone that's very sweaty, they haven't showered, they're not dressed quite nicely, and you take away quite a lot from that just unconsciously. So our clients will be doing the same thing. So it's very important that our physical presentation when it comes to our clothing and our hygiene is kept at the standards that would be expected for us as support workers. Use of movement. Now, I am very bad for this, so I'm sure there's a few people here that when we communicate, we talk a lot with our hands. It's a very European thing, and it's something that at times can be good when we're talking to our clients, depending on if they come from a similar background, like a cultural background. So you see that there's a cultural similarity there. But for others, it's too distracting. So one of the things that I would highlight if you are one of these people is just ensuring that you're keeping it to a minimum. And then with augmentative aids and key sign, this is something we'll go through a little bit later on in the presentation. Usually for clients that are older, augmentative aids might be something as simple as ensuring that they have access to a diary or a calendar, so they know what's happening during the day. Okay. Another thing that we need to be aware of when we're talking to others and building that rapport is the verbals that we're bringing out there. So I'm talking about our paralanguage. So it's not just simply about what we're saying, but how we're saying it. So the tone of our voice, the volume, is it too loud or too quiet? The clarity of our speech, how fast we're speaking to the clients. So the way to do this, again, same as the eye contact, is to match what the client, how the client is communicating as best as possible. But the key things around this is that at times when we're talking to our clients, there might be that miscommunication, or there might be that they don't understand what is being said. You might have to reflect and look back, is it the way that I am saying it to them? Also, a big thing when we're listening to others, and this is something that oftentimes you need to practice, is being comfortable in silence. You don't always have to speak and break apart the silence. Particularly if we've asked a client a question, we don't need to constantly bombard them with more information. In these instances, be comfortable in those silences and allow people to think, and also allow that natural progression of the conversation too. It is often very difficult, especially when we're nervous, when we're meeting a new client and we want to have that good impression, but just be mindful of that and reflect on your paralanguage, so the way that you're using your voice, how it's being portrayed out there, and also if you are allowing time for silences. Okay, so speaking of listening, one of the things that I would get you guys to really remember is that when we're listening to our clients, we're trying to aim for empathetic listening. So this is different types of listening, and you can see the differences between them is one is within our own frame of reference, and one, the empathetic listening, is within the other person's frame of reference. And I'll go through all these individually because you're probably going to, when I talk about this, realize that you have, when you're speaking not only with clients but with loved ones and family members, partners, that you might be doing some of the listening that's within your own frame of reference. So one of the big ones, ignoring, pretending to listen, so patronizing. So this is a case where you're pretending to listen, you're not actually listening to the person, you're pretending. That's pretty much it. Selective listening, I'm sure we've all have heard of that before, but with selective listening, to clarify for everyone, it's only listening to some parts of the conversation, not all of it. And then attentive listening too is still within our own frame of reference. We are listening to the person, but we're not considering it from their perspective. So we're aiming for that empathetic listening. And what I would remind all of you when you're talking with your clients is making sure that you have that at the back of your mind when you're listening to someone, and identifying when it is a case that we might be in these sections here where we're selective or we're pretending to listen to our clients. Okay, so some of the ways that we can show for our clients that we are listening and we're doing that empathetic listening, that attentive listening, so is two ways. Actually, sorry, no, it's not two ways, it's one way, paraphrasing. I wouldn't get you guys to repeat back the key phrases or words from the individual, because this can oftentimes come as patronizing to the person. So if you've ever heard of paraphrasing, this is when you paraphrase what the client has said to you. So say, for example, if you have a client and they're talking a lot about, say they're really missing their daughter, that she hasn't come to visit, the way that you might paraphrase that is, it sounds like to me you're a bit upset that she hasn't contacted you, or something like that. So we're not trying to put our own opinions in. The way you use paraphrasing is you're literally saying what the client has said to you, but in your own words, to clarify your understanding of what they are saying, but also to validate and also show that you are listening to what they are saying too. And this again is something that really needs to be practiced with your clients on the field, and with anything, practice makes perfect. Some empowering phrases that you can also utilize when working with clients. So it sounds like, "You seem to be, as I understand." So this is clarifying what they have said. And I do this quite often with clients, not only older clients, but also with clients with intellectual disabilities or impairments. So I'm definitely sure I've understood what they're wanting at this point in time, particularly if we're talking about goals or what the client wants to do today. There is no harm, and there is a lot of good in clarifying and making sure you understand what they want to do and what they're saying to you. So when working with older people, we want to ensure that we're utilizing empowering communication. Rather than looking at the downsides of growing old, we want to look at the opportunities that are available for them and make the best out of them. So some negative disempowering phrases, we've got a couple of ones listed here. So attempting to rescue clients from their problems. Now, this is something, so say if you have a friend that's had a very difficult day and they're wanting to vent to you about what's happened during the day, they're not looking to be saved, they just want to have someone to talk to about their issues. So same thing goes with our clients too. Sometimes they just need that listening ear. They're not looking to be saved, they just want someone there to emotionally support them through what they're going through. Asking too many questions, so this can be a barrier to conversation. Commanding the person, so stop worrying, don't be upset. You imagine if someone tried to say that to you. Threatening comments, not paying attention to them, so again, that ignoring or selective listening, and changing the subject when it's something that's actually important to them and you haven't addressed what they have just said. Okay, so continuing on with developing our relationships with older people. So when working with any client, you will have to consider their personal preferences, religious background, and cultural upbringing. These all play an important part in the client's care and how they may choose to live their life. You may find that you have been asked to advocate on behalf of a client because a counsellor wants to talk to your client about personal issues which culturally they would not normally discuss. So one of the key things is being aware of your client, their life story, their cultural and spiritual differences, and their current social environment at this point in time, and making sure that their supports are being their supports are catered to what the client wants, and they're not being discriminated against based on any of these the social, cultural, or spiritual differences. Because discrimination is unacceptable in the workplace, and this includes within the realm of aged care. So as a carer, you should provide equal services to older people, regardless of their race, cultural background, spiritual beliefs, or sexual preferences. So something that I just wanted to highlight quickly, we've lived longer and living better. This was an initiative that was promoted by the Australian government in order to assist people that are older to live those healthy and active lives. So it's an aged care reform package announced on April 2012. So it is a 10-year plan that aims to make aged care fairer, more effective and more nationally consistent. It aims to provide older people with greater choice, control and easier access to aged care services. It means that more priority and support for home care, better access to residential care, greater support to dementia sufferers, and also push at strengthening the aged care workforce. So this is nationwide and doesn't discriminate against anyone, regardless of their race, cultural, spiritual or sexual preferences, and the full details of this plan can be found in the Department of Health and Ageing. So live longer, living better. I think a 10-year plan, they've got 2 more years left and we'll see how that comes. But this was also, when we reflect back on the first slide of the PowerPoint, the fact that we do have quite a growing older population, the investment in the aged care facilities and the resources available to the clients is going to present itself more and more as the years go by. So it's something that definitely the Australian government needs to work on, and us as support workers will be working within that field too. All right, so in this section we're going to talk about the client's privacy and determining when it is necessary and appropriate to share information with colleagues. So we're going to go through the normal organisational policies and protocols when it comes to confidentiality and privacy of our clients. So confidentiality is required by law in certain respects. So the privacy of client records is a highly important aspect of confidentiality. Failure to maintain privacy of client records is punishable by law, and organisations can be sued by the clients. And not only this is that within aged care, within disability support, we have over additional governing bodies that ensure the privacy and the rights of the clients are being upheld. So we're also accountable for them too, not only as a service, but also as support workers. So some of the guidelines for maintaining confidentiality. So never discussing client information in social circles. So this includes with your friends outside of the workplace, someone that is not a part of the workplace. We're not discussing or providing information that can identify our clients. This is going to put them at risk, and it's also breaching your confidentiality too. Documented information should only ever relate to service delivery and relative factors. Confidential documents must be stored securely, so each of the organisations will have different protocols and procedures around this. Oftentimes you're going to have a case where it needs to be in a lockable cabinet, it needs to be in an office space that's lockable, and only authorised people, including the client, when they request to see their documentation, because they are well within their rights to do so, but ensuring that only the authorised people and the client are able to access that documentation. So another thing that we need to keep in the back of our minds is when confidentiality needs to be breached. So if the person is at serious risk of harm, where there is an immediate serious threat to the public or a specific person, where there is a police request, so if it's a court of law that's requesting this information legally, we need to provide that information, or for use by healthcare professionals. Now, again, this is something that is an authorised healthcare professional by either the client or their family. It's not something that if a healthcare professional requested it, we can't just do it based on goodwill that they're a healthcare professional. That's something I would highlight for all of you. Okay. So we're going to be discussing how to identify factors that act as enablers and disablers when it comes to our clients' quality of life. So first off, let's define them. So enablers are the factors that encourage elder people to do something. So for example, attending a class, and disablers are those factors that discourage people from doing something that they want to do. So some disablers, particularly for our ageing population, they're increasing health problems. Fear of falling is a very, very big one, and we'll discuss this a bit more because oftentimes with falling, this is one of the initial events that occurs prior to a whole range of healthcare problems, because once that mobility decreases and it's an instance where they are bedbound or wheelchair bound for a certain period of time, it's very difficult to get back to the stage that they were prior to the injury. Transport issues, if there's inconvenience, lack of friends or support, self-esteem, and the general tiredness as well that can occur with older age. Lack of friends or support. So one of the more sadder things around this is that because they are older people, they might have a case where a lot of their friends have passed away, or they might not have enough supports available to them. Everyone's circumstances is different. They might not have a family that can support them during this time. And at this stage, this is something where we might need to assist them, whether that be in a home or a residential facility. So enablers. So this is something that helps the clients to identify what is actually, I'll go through that in the end. So enablers is the expectation of positive outcomes. So social benefits, health benefits, so discussing those benefits with the clients in order to engage them in something. And social supports, so if attending as part of a friendship group, so keeping that social connectivity. And seeing easily accessible. So if the individual can drive, if there's a bus service not too far away from the home, it's not too far, and wheelchair access or lift accessible, because sometimes we'll have clients that require mobility assistance too. A key thing with enablers is also that we're ensuring that we're helping our clients to identify what is preventing them from taking part in certain things that can lead to This can lead to a better understanding of how we can help them and find solutions, particularly if it's things, transport, for example. This is something that we can discuss and look around. You might have clients that have never used public transport in their life, or it has been a very long time since they have. They're unable to drive now due to their increasing healthcare conditions, and it might be a case where you're supporting them to access that public transport. So some of the key issues that our older clients will be facing is around stereotypes and ageist attitudes. So financial hardships, there might be some grief, particularly if they have lost their life partners recently or close friends, living too remotely to receive services, and if they have any physical and psychological disabilities. So this can include dementia as well, and it can also include general physical disabilities and decrease in mobility. So some of the possible solutions for stereotypes and ageist attitudes, so education on elderly people, promoting their acceptance within the community. One of the key things around this is just making sure people are aware of their older community in the populace. If it's a case of financial hardship, so those granted community schemes that can support them. Counselling for grief and loss. There might be some residential care options for clients that are too remote to receive the home support service. And for physical and psychological problems, this could be something as simple as home adaptations and medical assistance. So we're just going to move on to discussing the responsibility of all parties involved in the care of the client, and assess and agree upon the responsibilities that the client is able to take upon themselves. So how we go through that as part of a multidisciplinary team. All right, so when we're working as support workers, when we're working in healthcare facilities, we all have certain responsibilities when it comes to the care of our clients. And the biggest thing that I would suggest for all of you is ensuring you are aware of your own responsibilities when it comes to the care of your client, because this will change from case to case, but also ensuring you're aware of all the other stakeholders involved in the client's supports and how they provide supports and what their responsibilities are. So this is as simple as discussing it with your supervisor. Oftentimes you will have meetings and stakeholders meetings that you can attend in order to clarify any information that you had not received before. But I genuinely, I would suggest discussing it with your supervisor and ensuring that you have all those questions written down prior and organising that meeting instead of just when you're on the job and you think they have a free second. It's more professional if you organise a meeting to clarify those things. So the client responsibilities will be unique to each client, and you'll need to agree what is it that they are willing and are able to do for themselves. So an example that they've got here, so the client needs help with transport to and from places, but they're more than capable of keeping their appointments, such as doctors, dentists, vet, whatever it might be for them. Right. So as we continue along with empowering our clients, we're going to identify and discuss services which can act as supports and assist with the empowerment of older persons in our care. So the overall aim for services to empower is to ensure that they can continue to carry out the client's lifestyle in surroundings they are used to and feel comfortable with. That ideally is what we're aiming for with all of our clients. So this can include assistive equipment, taking clients shopping, so providing those supports for everyday living tasks that they're having difficulties with at this point in time. It could also look at domestic personal assistance, financial planning, home modifications, and financial aid. Now, in the cases for you guys as support workers, some of the things that you might encounter, especially with the older populace, when they're trying to continue to live at home, they might do some home modifications. So this can include adapting their environment. So it could be doing a modification of the bathroom to make sure it's more safe and accessible for the individual. It could be looking at cooking in the kitchen, if that is something that they wish to continue to do, how those activities could be adapted in order to support their engagement. So the biggest thing for this is if you've got any other healthcare professionals, such as occupational therapists, who do quite a lot of those home modifications and task modifications, ensuring you're aware of the plan for the client in those instances. Okay. So in this next section, we're just going to be going over how we gather information that helps to identify a client's preferences, taking steps to support a client's preferences and ensuring that they are carried out, and making adjustments to services according to the specific needs and preferences of the client. So how we gather information about our clients, the best person to talk to, and I think I've said this a million times with a lot of recordings, is the person themselves. Talk to the client. If you're wanting to gather information, the best person to ask is the person that you're providing supports to. They're going to be able to give you, to clarify what they want to do at that stage. Other people that you can discuss with might be friends and families, and there's a couple of other ones there that wouldn't be necessarily as applicable for your case one. Now, in the instances for friends and family, if we're gathering that information, main reasons why we might require them as more of a support would be in instances of, say, such as dementia, or if they've got those frontal lobe, I guess you could, if they've had any injuries, brain injuries, or that progressive cognitive decline, we might need to seek access and support from friends and family and gather that information about their past life if the client is unable to articulate that themselves. So again, like I said before, clients should be consulted as much as possible on aspects of their care and lifestyle. This empowers them and allows them to live more comfortable and happy lives. You should write these down in clients' care plans, and over time it is a good practice to confirm that clients' preferences are still accurate, because people change over time. You're not going to have a set thing that you want to do throughout your life. You're not going to have a set care plan that identifies you and meets all your needs in one go. that's something that needs to be adapted over time as the client's circumstances change over time. All right, so with adjusting services, so you have a responsibility to ensure a safe environment for the client. So you may want to try and empower the client and have them make decisions for themselves and help to give them some independence. However, you must be careful not to be negligent for the risks involved in increased independence. So say, for example, if a client enjoys gardening and there is a garden centre nearby, but the client is suffering from dementia, it would not be appropriate for you to suggest the client goes to a garden centre by themselves, as you would be neglecting your duty of care, particularly if this is a new environment, the client has never been there before, they need to access public transport. There might be some issues there, particularly when it comes to actually getting to the place and back. So carers should think about any risks that would be increased through the client partaking in any activity or anything that could prevent the client from obtaining that service. So this can include time, equipment, the type of service and location. And if you do identify those risks, the biggest thing for us as service providers is ensuring we identify risk and see how we can adapt the services in order to ensure that we reduce that risk as much as possible. So for the example, for the client that's suffering dementia that loves gardening, you identify that there is a community service for a garden centre that would be very appropriate for her and her preferences, but because I have identified that it would be too much of a high risk for her to do it by herself. One way we can support that is ensuring she has a support worker that attends it with her. All right, so now we're just going to be doing a general discussion around organizational policy procedures and duty of care requirements when it comes from to different organizations. One of the things I will highlight for all of you is that every organization will have different policies and procedures. Our duty of care will be pretty much the same whenever we're working with clients, but this is just a general discussion. When you're working on the field, the most important thing is that you read the policies and procedures that your organization has and you're aware of those processes too. So a key element of working with policies, protocols and procedures is to only perform duties that fall within your job role. So you should never attempt to carry out or provide professional advice on something that you are not qualified to. You should also know what to do when you are unsure of your job role and work instructions. So it will depend from client to client, from organization to organization. But if you're unsure of your job role and work instructions, the biggest thing that I would advise is talking to your supervisors about this and any issues that you've identified. Another thing too, oftentimes it's going to be in your policies and procedures around your job role and the clarification when it comes to the work instructions. So one of the key things is to ensure that you have read that documentation. So you are going in there, if you need to discuss it with your supervisor, with the understanding of what the organisation is expecting of you, and then confirming that clarification you're after. So duty of care. The duty of care was written legally into the Workplace Health and Safety Act in 1995, and it's a moral duty to anticipate possible hazards and causes of injury and do everything reasonably practicable to prevent, remove, minimize these causes. So we have a duty of care to our clients when we're providing support. Very similar as, say, for example, in the building that I'm currently in, if I was the fire warden and there was a fire, I have a duty of care to ensure that everyone that is on the premises exits out, so evacuates, and the fire department arrives on time. Similar to, because if you have a first aid certificate and this is something that is an expected component of your workplace, you have a duty of care to provide assistance with first aid in the event that an injury occurs. So it's that moral obligation, but it's also a legal obligation for us as support workers. So there's a variety of legislation to consider when facilitating the empowerment of older people. So some of the legislation in place is outlined below. So your Aged Care Act of 1997, Aged Care Act of 2006, Aged Care Discrimination Act 2004, and the Residential Care Manual too. So I'm just going to quickly go through each of these ones here just to clarify your understanding. So we'll start off at the very beginning with our Aged Care Act of 1997. So the purpose of this legislation is to make sure that everyone has access to aged care if they require it, regardless of their race, gender, culture, language, geographical location, or economic situation. So it promotes the protection of health and well-being through high quality care and services that should be flexible, reasonable, and diverse in nature. It also protects the consumer, so that's your client, as legal, personal, and civil rights. It covers residential, home, and flexible care, and the providers will receive funding according to the quality of services they supply, and it also holds them accountable for any care they provide. So the Aged Care Act of 2006, so that bond security. So this guarantees a financial refund if your aged care provider goes bankrupt or ceases to trade. If your provider can't pay back your bond, the Commonwealth will then refund this money to you, including interest. The only deduction will be retention amounts that apply and other agreed fees. So this is just ensuring that your clients, if there's an aged care facility that they were getting services from and they no longer provide services, they're not going to go bankrupt in the process. So the Age Discrimination Act of 2004. So this ensures that everyone is treated equally regardless of their age. Older people are often discriminated against because of their age, so the Act makes it illegal to do so in areas such as employment, accommodation, information requests, and goods and service provision. And then you have the Residential Care Manual. So the purpose of this is to help care providers comply with their responsibilities as part of the Aged Care Act of 1997, as well as helping staff understand rules and regulations. However, it only applies government subsidies, residential aged care. So it's that aged care facility residential support that it applies to. It wouldn't necessarily apply to supports that you might be providing in the family home for a client. Okay, so moving on to protecting the rights of our clients. So this includes what we discussed previously, so ensuring their privacy and confidentiality is upheld, ensuring that they are able to access information about themselves. As I highlighted before, it's their supports, you're providing services to them as the client, as the consumer. They have the right to see that information. Ensuring the respect and dignity of our clients and have their social, physical, and cultural needs met. Ensuring that they are aware that they are able to provide feedback and complain about improper services. Ensuring that they have informed choice. So when we refer to informed choice, this talks about providing all the options to our clients, allowing them to know what the risks are involved or if there are any other complications a part of the service. So they are able to make that informed choice. So they have the information all with them when they make that decision. Be informed about services, policies and procedures, expectations and the condition of the service, a right to express ideas and opinions, and an agreed standard of care. So the government has an aged care complaint scheme, which is a free service for anyone to raise concerns about the quality of care services delivered to any aged care service subsidy by the Australian government. So this includes residential care, home care, and HACC services. So the first process in the instance where you have a client that wishes to make a complaint should be to lodge a complaint with the service provider before anything else. This will result in the quickest and most direct resolution to the problem. The complainant is allowed to take an advocate with them to meetings with providers as support and to ensure they are not taken advantage of. So this advocacy, there are advocacy services available for older Australians and older clients to support them through this process. So some of the complaint topics that your clients might have would be around their quality of care, the choice of activities, catering, personal care, physical environment, or communication quality too. So the biggest thing around this for us as support workers is that if your client has identified that they wish to make a complaint about services, that we're supporting them through that process, and we're ensuring that all that information is documented and sent to the appropriate person with the client's approval. All right. So continuing on with the rights of older people. So when it comes, I'll just quickly, we're just ensuring for this one here that we're working in a manner that upholds the principles of older persons. So this includes independence, participation, care, self-fulfillment, and dignity. So all clients of aged care should be treated fairly and equally, regardless of disability, different cultural backgrounds, different financial circumstances, geographical locations, genders, beliefs, or sexual orientation, as was highlighted in previous legislation too. So the next section, we just discussed about the rights of the person. I wanted to discuss about what to do in the instances where we have identified abuse has occurred or there has been a breach of the client's rights. So in the instances for if you have identified that the human rights violation has occurred. So this would be specific when it comes to the things we discussed previously. So in the instances, say, for example, that they have been discriminated based on any of these key aspects here and are unable to gain services because of any of these reasons. So reporting it to the best person I would suggest would be your supervisor. There can also be in those instances HR departments, whatever your organizational procedure is for those complaints. And honestly, those would be the first people that I would be discussing it with, mainly because you as a support worker, if you have identified that something is occurring at your workplace that is discriminating against a client, you don't want to just quickly go to the ombudsman straight away, because you have a duty of care and you have a role as part of the organization. When you identify that that violation, that something is done. So from your end, you need to ensure that you're addressing it and highlighting it with the appropriate supervisors within your workplace to ensure something occurs. Those would be the first steps I would be taking prior to anything else. All right. So we need to touch quickly when we're working with older people, quite similar to when we were discussing clients with disabilities, is that because we have a vulnerable population in the community, we might at stages there is the instance for abuse to occur with elderly clients. So this can include physical, emotional, sexual abuse, healthcare fraud, and neglect. So some of the symptoms of abuse, I wanted to go through when it comes to your different types of abuse, how that might present depending on each client to client. So with symptoms can be difficult to recognize as they may mirror those of dementia or frailty. It can be easy for people to explain away the signs, and many people may dismiss them as a minor issue. However, you should not believe a caregiver at face value and investigate if you are at all concerned. So the following are things you should be on the lookout for. In the cases of general abuse, this could include frequent arguments between elderly persons and caregivers, changing in personality of the elderly person, odd or unusual behaviours, unexpected injuries, broken bones, sprains, dislocations, medication irregularities, broken glasses, signs of restraint. So this can include on the client's wrists, on their legs, a caregiver refusing to let elderly person be seen alone. And in the cases of emotional abuse, this might be experiences of threatening, bullying, or controlling behaviour from the caregiver. In the instances for neglect, some of the key things would be around any weight loss, malnutrition, dehydration. If you're going on site and the client is always unclean, untreated physical problems, unsuitable clothing for the condition, and unsanitary or unsafe living conditions too. So the key thing around this, and it can often be quite difficult, especially in the instances where your client is starting to progress through dementia, is making sure that in the instances that you identify unexpected bruising, if you're seeing these changes in your client, that you're reporting it through and documenting it appropriately. And it's essentially to ensure that our client is being safe in these instances, and we're not simply dismissing it as it's due to their dementia or it's due to X, Y, and Z. We need to be listening to our clients. All right, so we just went through the complaining section too. So one of the things you just want to highlight quickly is that with complaints or feedback of services, it's not only the clients that can do that, it can also be a wide variety of stakeholders. So this can include representatives of care recipients, family members, friends, legal representatives, other support workers or aged care staff, volunteers and healthcare professionals too. So the key 3 steps is, first of all, talk to the people directly involved with the complaint to attempt to solve the problem. Take the issue higher up, or if initial discussions are unproductive, and take the complaint to an agency or refer the client to an advocacy service if that is required in that instance. Oftentimes you might have family members or clients that are complaining about a particular part of the service. The biggest thing that I would suggest for all of you is making sure that you're documenting this information down and it's being sent to the appropriate supervisor. Okay, so now that we have talked for quite some time about the rights and supporting our clients, the next section is about that one-on-one support and how we can assist with the health promotion and re-enablement of older clients. So this can include supporting them with living activities such as cooking, cleaning, dressing, grooming, household chores, and any leisure tasks that they enjoy. So I mentioned briefly when we're looking at health and re-enablement, when I discuss re-enablement, what this is re-enablement involves helping people learn, or perhaps more often relearn, the skills they need for everyday living. So older people may have lost these skills through the deterioration of health and their reliance on support. So it is a new approach to care that means carers guide clients on tasks, doing them with the client instead of doing them for the client. Care workers will have to take the role of guide and supervisor. This will mean standing back and letting the client have a go instead of doing it for them. Care workers will have to discuss the goals of the client with them so that they can think of tasks that can help the client to achieve them. So support should be adjusted for each client on an individual basis and should be decreased for clients who are making progression with their goals too. So similar to whenever we're working with any client when it comes to their support with independence, is ensuring we're not doing it all for them and making sure we're there as a guide and supporting them through to do aspects of the tasks that they are capable of doing and reteaching them and re-enabling them to do those tasks. So although we talk about aged care and support in quite a positive manner, one of the key things when it comes to our clients is that we need to be aware that they are going to go through physical changes associated with aging. So aging is a process of growing old, and you're going to have those health conditions regardless of how great you are when it comes to your exercise regimen, your diet, and all those other things that we can support the clients to work towards. One thing that we need to remember is that they are going to have those physical changes, and a part of our support is supporting them through those physical changes too. So some of the general physical changes that you might see within your clients. So for example, vision. So eyes may dry up and lenses become less accurate. So therefore sight can become blurry and out of focus. So glasses and contact lenses may need to be used as corrective measures, and they might need to be checked quite frequently. Your client's hearing is going to change. So the changing ear structure and nerves can lessen hearing ranges, with higher frequencies more difficult to hear for clients. Taste and smell will change too. So the senses of smell and taste can fade, leading to a decrease of appetite and weight loss. Immunity is going to decrease as the immunity system gets weaker, with white blood cells being less effective. You're going to have some changes with hair and nails. So hair might become thinner and drier, leading to possible itching and discomfort, as well as hair loss, which can have other implications when it comes to your client's self-esteem. And nails may become brittle, and fungal infections can become more common. You might have some changes when it comes to hormones. So these can result in a multitude of problems that can affect metabolism, endocrine glands, and sexual function. Teeth and gums, so there might be some complications and issues there. Face, you're going to have obviously those physical changes, so wrinkles, age spots, facial contours may shift, leading to drooping and sagging skin. And you're going to have some changes when it comes to body shape too. So some of the common conditions for elderly clients can include arthritis, diabetes, frailty, heart and lung diseases, incontinence, skin disorders, stroke, and vascular diseases too. So one of the things I would suggest for all of you is going through your textbook to learn about these issues that your clients will be facing further on. But if you do have a client that is diagnosed, say, with arthritis or osteoarthritis, it's important that you're aware of how their condition is currently, what their condition is predicted to become, and the current issues that they're facing when it comes to their ability to do independent living tasks, and the supports that you're going to need to assist them with. So another thing that we can do when assisting with clients is ensuring that we're encouraging a healthy lifestyle. So a healthy lifestyle is important to prevent and manage many of the debilitating conditions associated with aging. So social and recreational activities are vital to an individual's general health and well-being. This is not only physical health, but also mental health too, as they will assist with them keeping fit and active, keep the mind working, and get the endocrine system going too. If your client does not already have social or recreational activities in place, it is your duty to find out what their preferences are and inform them of activities available to them in their area. Social and recreational activities help to combat isolation that many elderly individuals or others in care can encounter. So the client may have a network of individuals that either visit them or are available to help with the problem of isolation or general care when you are not around. So some strategies for healthy living may include taking regular exercise, maintaining a healthy diet, mental stimulation, so this can include games, whether that be puzzles, etc., hobbies, finding something new to do, engaging with remaining family members, learning new things, taking a class, joining a club, travel if that's possible for the client. And another one is getting vaccinations for common infections too. And I think one of the more interesting ones now, with the way that the world has become since COVID-19 decided to appear and change everyone's year, is ensuring that you're up to date when it comes to the health recommendations for older people too. That would be a big suggestion. All right, so I'm sure everyone knows our lovely 5 food groups. One of the things I would suggest for any of your clients is discussing with them if they've ever been on a nutrition plan, or if there is funding available to see a nutritionist or a dietitian, because this can be quite supportive of the client, and particularly if it's an instance where they are wanting to, we're seeing what their current health needs are. They're wanting to get more variety in their life. This is someone that has additional information that can provide that support too. So if it's available for the clients, I would highly recommend that. So exercising, I'm sure we've all heard about this stuff. I don't know how many of us actually put it into practice though. So exercising, the benefits is that it makes you feel good. It can provide an opportunity to have fun and socialize, helps to prevent weight gain that is unhealthy, helps you to relax, reduces risks of diseases, encourages healthy growth and development, and helps build strong bones and muscle joints. And for our clients, particularly with arthritis and that too, when it comes to fatigue management, oftentimes for fatigue management, they do discuss actually increasing the amount of exercise that you're doing per day. And this can assist when it comes to some of the other conditions they may be facing. And it doesn't have to be something like doing a marathon or doing a full gym circuit or anything like that for our older clients. It could be something as simple as going swimming or going for a walk, that low impact kind of exercise that they would be able to do on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so we've discussed a little bit around home modifications, such as walk-in showers. You've also got stair lifts too, handrails, slopes and ramps, wide access for wheelchairs, emergency alarms. Emergency alarms, one of the things I'll highlight for that is that can include, for some clients, you might have seen that they might have a beeper or something that they wear on them. So in the case of a fall, that they can press a button in order to get someone there to assist them. Some aids that your clients might use could include wheelchairs, walking sticks, walking frames, hearing aids, or guide dogs, depending on how their situation, their eyesight is deteriorating. So we discussed a little bit when it comes to legislation, and there are quite substantial supports for financial aids and modifications for our clients, not only with the aged care support, but depending on if they're on the NDIS too, there might be some supportive funding there. Now, we talked about this briefly with potential risks associated with aging. I've got a lovely video too that highlights the risk of falls within the populace and some of the things that we can do to support clients that are at that risk. Additional issues might be road accidents, getting lost, also being potential victims of crime. So I wanted to play this video for you guys. Oh, maybe not. It's not there. All right, so we don't have a video, unfortunately.
Did you know that your older loved ones, you know, your grandmother, your friendly neighbor.
Okay. We're all good there, so we'll get started with this video.
Did you know that your older loved ones, you know, your grandmother, your friendly neighbor, are literally one step, make that one misstep, slip or stumble away from their lives changing forever? It's true, because a bad accidental fall can have devastating consequences. And unfortunately, this happens more often than you might think. 1/3 of people over the age of 65 fall every year in the United States. That's over 15 million people, the same number of people in New York City, Los Angeles, and Chicago combined. Falls cause over 500,000 broken bones annually and are the #1 cause of accident-related deaths in older adults, resulting in more fatalities than even automobile accidents. The reason is that there are over 160 risk factors that are just waiting to take down someone you care about. External factors such as bad weather, poor lighting, and unsafe terrain are everywhere. Internal factors like medication interactions, sensory impairments, and lack of exercise combine with the aging process to make the body's balance control mechanisms break down. So what can we do about it? Exercise can be a great solution, but almost all fall prevention exercise classes are a one-size-fits-all approach. That means that most older people won't be getting the right exercises to help them. In fact, they may even be more at risk. So we have developed Mobility Matters. Mobility Matters is a subscription website and associated smartphone app that creates an individualized exercise program that gets results. Here's how it works. Complete 3 easy self-administered physical assessments, answer a few yes or no questions, and let our proprietary algorithm build an exercise program that addresses the strengths and weaknesses of your loved one.
So just quickly with that video, I just paused it, had to go on to the next slide, but it was just more so highlighting when it comes to our clients, the risk factors associated with risk of falls. A big one is the general environment, particularly the lighting. And say, for example, if you're providing supports in the home of the client, you might find that they might have quite a few possessions, and they might be hoarders too. So there's magazines stacked up to the very top of the ceiling because we can't get rid of those. And there's a lot of potential risks in their home environment. So if you're identifying those risks on site, if it's in a client's home, it's having those discussions with the client around and educating them around those falls preventions and discussing what they would be comfortable with moving in the environment to make sure that they're not as high of a risk of falling. Within the residential facilities, it's as simple as ensuring that you don't have any risks, particularly on the ground, that are going to cause potential falls. All right. So that's everything from me today. I hope that this presentation has been informative for all of you. And if you've got any questions, just let us know. I'm more than happy to answer them. But best of luck. And again, when it comes to your questions, just make sure you read the textbook and it'll provide that additional information if you're requiring specific information. All right, perfect. So that's all from me. I'll see you guys next time.